All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, I did change out that poll. I see both of you have answered now. Wonderful. I'll leave that open in case we have anybody join us during these first couple minutes before I get to the slide. But thank you both so much for being here and being on time. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to sharing how to stand out online and attract customers, helping you to understand how to establish a digital presence. And we are lucky enough to be here today thanks to a grant from the Washington State Microenterprise Association that was given to the Pacific County Economic Development Council that you can see on this slide amongst all the other wonderful nonprofit groups that benefited from this grant. And that Pacific County Economic Development Council is also there to help you and your businesses to continue to grow. They have a number of resources. We're going to talk about a couple of them. But just to cover a couple of the heavy hitters, they do have printing services and a meeting room available for reservation at the Long Beach Merchant or Welcome Center, as it's now being called. And they also do wonderful classes like this and have other support services available to help you in many ways. So I highly recommend becoming a member and taking advantage of what they offer our community here. And I am Lynn Westfall, also known as the Modem Lisa, since 1999, bringing technology to the forefront of creating my art. And over the course of that career in technology, I also learned to become mindful of how to use technology, being more thoughtful and patient with technology decisions, and helping to think through the entire process. And I tell you, establishing an online presence is one of the things that got me into technology when I was young. And the internet was young with me. I was still in middle school when we first got our home computer with AOL 2.0 at the time. And, I was able to get online and chat with people. Well, one of the very first things that I wanted to do was share my stories, my lyrics and music with others. And in order to do that at the time, it was a little difficult. We didn't have, obviously, the social media platforms that we have today. Um, so the concept was, well, you could create your own website, but websites had a huge expense at the time. Though I did spend that money eventually to have a more professional website for the Modem Lisa and my band Premium Bananas, some other businesses at that time. Before that, in order to learn how to make websites, there was a free platform that was available called GeoCities, and it allowed people to create their personal little portal online. And, much like we see with social media today, where it was more people building profiles and sharing little things and stories and pictures and stuff. It kind of was the precursor that we saw to things like MySpace and now Facebook. So it was very hard to find your site on GeoCities. You had to know like, oh, I'm in this neighborhood on this block, and it would be like geocities.com slash forecast way slash Halloween slash yesterday's memories slash Lynn site. So you really had to know where you were going in order to actually see it. It was mostly like just telling your friends, hey, look at what I did online. But it got me excited, it got me interested, and it served as a platform for teaching me how you could touch the whole world through having your website. You are no longer just confined to your school or community or even your state. You could literally have people from around the world looking at what you put online. And it was so exciting that I couldn't talk to any businesses into getting a website at the time. I actually got laughed at a couple times, like, businesses will never need websites. Ugh, the internet is just a gimmick. Oh, people will, oh, maybe big business will use it. There were lots of dismissive comments when the web was young. And it's amazing to see how things have evolved and changed and how dependent on online services and having social media and different platforms to communicate with each other that we've really become. So we're going to dive into all of that today and find out what the world of web design and development and um, promotion of business and personal desires through online presence really is all about. All right, so I'm going to end our poll here and let's talk about the answers we got. So of the two of you that polled, we got a 50-50 split amongst who already has a website. And for those of you that have your own website, you are managing it yourself. So kudos to you. It is sometimes thankless, but it is definitely a full-time job that you are taking on in addition to running your business. So you don't think that it's performing too well, though, for you. And that is a common feeling. Even I'm, in sort of the budding rebuild of this website. I say I've had the Modem Lisa site since 1999, but because by 2001, I had decided I wasn't really pursuing my own business anymore. I had gotten kind of a job being an IT expert. I was the IT girl for a private school, so I kind of handled all things IT, and just decided to let the Modem Lisa go. So I didn't have this website for a very long time. And one of the things that we'll talk about is that websites are not just like a business card where you can design it one time and it's good to go and you never change it. It's meant to be a living, breathing representation of your business, where it's going, and keeping present with what your customers are demanding, what the world and sort of the community for your products or services has moved to. So it's not something that you can just set it and forget it. You really do have to give it a lot of care and feeding. And the website alone is not enough. As we'll talk about search engine optimization strategies, social media strategy, and all these different components that play into your online presence, just like with a business card, once you have them printed, you still have to get them in the hands of your prospects. So there's still a process once you create your website to really get you in front of your prospects. So only half of you do any social media promotion today. And sort of the sad part of our reality is that social media has become one of the primary ways to promote our business. And this is kind of within the last 10 years, an evolution that happened. Even in the last 5 years, uh, starting just before COVID, really, where almost every business was, trying to get some kind of social media presence, not necessarily a successful social media presence, but just, oh, here again, I'm not sure if I need a website. I'm not sure if I need a social media presence. So I'm just going to slap something up. And with social media presence, it's really about engagement and finding out that those younger generations that really are deeply entrenched in that social media environment, they want that feel of being directly connected with the business or artist or creator of any kind. They want that direct connection, that feeling. So there's a different approach to social media that we'll talk about. And looks like most of us are using Facebook. I know I'm kind of Facebook and YouTube heavy. We've got a TikTok viewer here. I don't do a whole lot with TikTok. It's a, because it's such a visual platform. Um, it just it's difficult to find your. Oh, you make reels on it. Oh, that's awesome. Hey, it's getting you in that feel of being comfy with technology. Oh, cool. And you share them on Instagram and Facebook. Oh, how fun. Yeah, I've been thinking about tiptoeing more into TikTok, especially as a musician and an artist. When you're creating content of any kind, be it, creative or I think of some of the examples that we have on the peninsula. Last night there was a wonderful woman, Rebecca, blanking on her last name, Lexa. She gives, she teaches about foraging mushrooms and other foraging native plants, understanding what our native plant culture is here in the Pacific Northwest, and how to maintain your lawn if you want to protect the native plants and not bring anything invasive in and growing things. So for her, platforms like YouTube and TikTok that are very visual, where she can teach and explain, they're really stand out. They're great for people like that individual kind of presence, that you're trying to have there. Not surprised that no one chimed in on Nextdoor, Yelp, or Discord. Though I was a little surprised about LinkedIn. That's kind of from a business perspective, I see that a little bit more. And we're just taking care of our marketing personally. This is a challenging role as a business owner to understand how to approach marketing your product, how to understand your customers, and then how to cater to them. And that is where we're going to start this conversation at. And do we have a dedicated online marketing budget? Unfortunately, none of us do yet on the call, and that's a challenge because just like any business expense, if we're not planning for it, it's going to sneak up and become an issue, especially since most of us have very tight overall business budgets. So we'll learn how to kind of determine what your needs might be so you can better plan for your spend, not only the actual cash out, but that time that you're putting in and what it means to your business. So the answer about what percentage of revenue should I dedicate to online marketing? 1 to 5% was the common answer here. The answer that you'll find if you go answer, ask your AI chat bots like ChatGPT or Copilot, they'll tell you it's 7 to 12% of revenue is recommended to go back into your online marketing. Or, there's kind of a debate about how to segment it from marketing as a whole. So you could look at your entire marketing budget as 7 to 12%. Probably somewhere in that 5% range is the sweet spot for most of our businesses to get benefit without overspend on online marketing. And how much time do we spend online each day? So this call, we're pretty moderate here. We're only digging in 3 to 5 hours. That's still a lot when I think about, my youth, where there was almost no online time, and then it slowly creeped into our lives. But 4 in 10 adults report they are online constantly. This is one of the links that you'll find in the materials. It's a Pew Research information article that I found, and it is crazy the amount of time that people are spending online. And it's partially because it's become so accessible. We didn't have mobile devices to just sit and stare at previously. And now it's just easier than ever to grab it and just scroll away. And before you know it, the whole evening's been gone. So I shared the results of the poll temporarily there so you can see them too, but I just read through what we had there. So thank you for participating. Hopefully that was a little fun way to talk about our topics today and understand more about our participants. So what we're going to talk about today is understanding how important this digital presence is for small businesses. And then we're going to learn how to gather insights on our customers and understanding their online habits so that we can apply that to how we build our online presence strategy and help to map out the optimal platforms for our online presence. We'll talk about how to build a successful website, what elements are needed. And I've provided you with some great tools within the online presence workbook that we're going to work through a lot today, as well as the brand book that will help you capture information about your brand as it stands today and keep that as an evolution of where you take your brand moving forward. And we're going to use that brand concept a lot, which I sort of in my um, business workings, I feel like the concept of brand is a very strongly understood concept, and that you want to have this unified look, feel, voice, presence for your business. But some smaller businesses where you maybe have never tiptoed into digital presence yet, the concept of brand can be a little daunting to think about all the different aspects and maintaining that. So hopefully this brand book will continue to serve as a wonderful tool for your businesses moving forward. And then we're going to talk about how to track and measure so that you can continue to improve on what you build. Because like I said, this isn't something you can just set it and forget it. It's a living thing that you have to keep feeding, and um, you'll need to continue to track and measure in order to make those improvements. Like I said in the first session that we had many times, and this will probably be the common theme of many of these classes, is you can't improve what you're not tracking. So getting in the habit of tracking different details um, can be very critical to not only establishing your digital presence, but maintaining it moving forward. So I did this a little out of order. I already talked about our poll questions, but just to kind of recap a little bit, we talked about the percentage of revenue that we should use, and we talked about being online constantly. Um, And in addition to the 41%, that's the actual percentage, it said 4 in 10, but the 41% who report using the internet almost constantly, 9 in 10 of us are going online every day. So we may not be putting in a lot of hours, but almost all of us are touching the internet, social media in some way every single day. I want to know who that 1 in 10 adults is that's still not going online every day. So, why is a digital presence so important? Well, you want to be able to reach your customers where they are and continue to expand your customers if you're a business that looks to expand. And I say that because obviously not every business is on a heavy growth trajectory, but typically all businesses want to continue to grow and maintain business in a healthy pace. Having this kind of accessibility is a double-edged sword, right? Your customers may feel very special that they can send you a message on social media and have you respond, but you may not feel as comfortable about having to respond to social media messages at 2 in the morning in order to feel like you're giving your audience the proper attention. You can set your own boundaries, and you definitely want to be tracking your time invested in these processes. So we'll look at that very thoroughly during this conversation today. Um, it's great for customer engagement. You know, social media is the opportunity to touch and get involved in your customers' lives, find out things about them you wouldn't have normally been able to find out in a sort of brick and mortar, in and out the door kind of situation. So you can really build deeper relationships with your customers. You can find niches that you maybe didn't know existed in your market, all thanks to having some kind of online footprint. Marketing and branding. It used to be, if you really wanted to get out to a large audience, you had to look at broadcast radio or broadcast TV to hit a large audience that was outside of your local demographic. But now, with having a website, with social media platforms and other online communities, you have a much more cost effective way to market your product to this large global audience. And once you enhance that with things like search engine optimization and content marketing, you're able to take your company to levels that in previous generations would have been unseen, and in really short amounts of time. You can get a message to your customers faster than ever before thanks to these platforms, and that can give you the opportunity to be very dynamic. Have a special sale for puppy day, have a special incentive for pie day. Yes, I went down to the Long Beach Pie Lady on 314 because it was fun to do. And she had fun bubbles outside the building and everything. So anyway, but that kind of opportunity is there to be taken. um, you have the opportunity to sell products online easier than ever. You can even just link to affiliate products that you don't even make or package or ship, but products that are just still sold through platforms like Amazon, but you utilize within your business for other purposes and want to have available on your website for customers to purchase. There's so many opportunities to gain additional revenue through these streams, as well as selling your own products being easier than ever. Obviously, we still have the hurdles of shipping on this peninsula. We know very well challenges with getting things in and out, but getting the customer awareness and the ability to buy your product is certainly easier than ever. And because digital presence is so important, when you don't have it, you aren't seen. So you're standing out from your competition immediately by having a presence. Now you just want to make sure that that presence has the right look and feel, and it's speaking to your brand, and it's telling customers, not only do I have a presence here, but it's a good one, and it's a reliable one, and it's a trustworthy one, whatever kind of tone you're trying to set with your customers. This having a digital presence is where you can gain that advantage. So let's talk about how well we know our customers. So today, over 81% of retail shoppers, people that are going into physical stores, they're conducting research online before they're buying that retail product. And these are what you're seeing on your screen are the different percentage of consumers that use search engines to research their retail products. And this could be as simple as I needed to search for pizza so that I knew the phone number to Chico's, even though I know there's only 2 pizza places on the peninsula. I'm just going to put in pizza in Google Maps, and I'm going to know that that phone number is going to come up along with their websites, their address, their hours, their reviews. I mean, this is content that customers love to have at their fingertips in order to make those decisions. But when we talk about researching other products deeply, if your products are not online for your consumers to research, you're missing the opportunity. And your customers are researching you. You also need to be researching your customers. Market research is a critical part of your business strategy, and the online habits of your consumers as part of that market research is a game changer. So we're going to look at some tools for how to find that. And, we talked about in the poll, if you're the person that handles your marketing strategy and the person that handles your website and you're the solopreneur, you also have to wear the hat of being a market researcher and understanding how to use online tools to find information about your customers. And I've given you some links in our data sheet that I'll bring up here. We've got a wealth of knowledge here in your sheet today. We're going to talk about market research later, and I've given you some of these wonderful tools that we'll go over as part of that. Just I'll leave this down here. And I'm also going to open up our online presence management workbook. We're going to go through this and start to build out what the workbook looks like for your business along the way. And our other tracking sheet that we've got today to work with is our brand book. And we'll talk about building that out for your business as well. So, we talked about that 7 to 12% of a revenue as a potential target. But you can also consider this as a gauge for your time investment. If you start to track and measure all of your time spent in the business, try to see if you can keep yourself within that 7 to 12%, or let's say 5 to 15% of your overall time is spent on developing your online presence, your marketing strategy, doing your market research. But you do want to come up with an initial target, and an initial budget is more, the right way to say that, because your time is your money. So you're going to spend some cash out, but the bigger investment is going to be your time. And if you don't make an upfront commitment to the time that you're going to put into your online presence, you won't have the data to measure to determine if you succeeded at it. So I'd encourage you today to think about, your overall work day, your overall work week, month, year, how you plan and scope for your business, and think about, could I dedicate 5, 10, or 15% of that time to doing this? And the more you put in upfront, the less you'll have to spend on the back end, because you may be able to get things set up in an automated fashion so that you're not constantly on the button, so to say, with your social media. We'll look a little bit about the tools that Facebook and Instagram give you, and how to kind of help alleviate some of that constant pressure to put your focus into that social media. But again, making that commitment for yourself so that you can measure, okay, when I put in this amount of time and I put in this amount of money, these are the results that I get. This is what it cost me, and this is what my return on that investment was. And this is the formula that we're going to see when we get to the end of the class today in determining our return on investment in our digital presence. So what are the elements of a digital presence? Well, of course, what I consider the core element is your website. I don't think that there's any creator, small business, solopreneur, entrepreneur, service provider, nonprofit, institution. I don't think there's any business organization group that doesn't benefit from having their own dedicated website, even if it's just a single page, to provide ongoing access to relevant data about the business. That website, it is your digital flyer for the world, and it should be regularly updated, user friendly. It could serve as a digital storefront for your business if you are selling something or providing a service that is a paid service. Some of the key elements of a website that we're going to dig into are having clear branding and messaging, having an intuitive navigation. I'm sure we've all experienced what happens when you go to a website and you click on things and they don't work, or you don't understand exactly what you should be clicking on because the navigation's a little convoluted. So having an intuitive navigation really sets your website apart. Nowadays, everybody's looking at their website on their mobile device, so you need it to be a mobile responsive website. Believe it or not, a lot of web design is still not directly made for mobile. And there are very different factors that go into the design elements of a website that's just configured for desktop versus a responsive website that changes based on the device or browser that's looking at it. So we're going to talk a lot about that. But your website also needs to have engaging content. You can throw that flyer up there and it might be engaging when it first goes up and people are like, oh yeah, I really want to get in on that free class. But if after the classes are done, there's no comments on the classes or other things. I'm kind of commenting in my own situation here where we don't necessarily have an active dynamic website for these classes, but we have a static presence for them and the online registration. We could be doing more. Um, so there's always ways to make your site more engaging, and having that current and very specific to your niche content is important. You also want to provide some way of people funneling information to you. You want to use that website to capture contact information or allow people to sign up for a newsletter, link it to your social media. It should be very interconnected with your other aspects of online presence if they exist, or linked to other groups, organizations, or businesses, which we'll talk about when we talk about search engine optimization. And if you're going to be using your website to accept payments from your customer, you have some additional responsibilities around protecting the security of that payment, protecting any of your customers' private data that they may be entering into your site, and ensuring that your site is secure so that your customers are secure. Now, next, social media presence. Once you have a website, and vice versa, once you have social media presence, you want to funnel your customers to your website to either engage in your contact forms or buy your products, or if you're trying to direct people from your website to look at your content on social media, if you're trying to be YouTube or a TikTok influencer and you want to monetize those channels, you're doing kind of the opposite. You're funneling from your website to your social media. It could be a very two-way street. The more consistent that your branding is between your website, your social media, your print media, and every aspect of your digital presence, the better things will be. People will get to know that brand. Your audience will start to interact and get engaged. You'll want to utilize any trends in your market, and that includes popular hashtags that pop up, making sure that you're kind of monitoring and staying on those trends and responding when your customers are giving you kind of that feedback and content and telling you what works and what doesn't work through their communication on these social media platforms. Search engine optimization. So this is kind of a floating target in the sense of online marketing and digital presence, because what optimizes your website today for having higher rankings and results or being more predominant on the different search engines is different than it was just a couple years ago. This is one of those areas of ongoing market research that you have to spend time in and make sure that you're continually optimizing what keywords are popular for your market. You also have work to do on your website side when it comes to how the page is structured. Every element of your website is sort of reviewed in a different way by the search engines. A common term for how they crawl through your website, they use a spider to crawl through your website, but that spider doesn't pick up on everything. And you could have a website that's very full of images. And if none of those images have the right alt text, they don't have any captions, they don't have any descriptions, their titles are vague, that search engine spider is just going to crawl right over your website and not capture any information that visually might be very obvious if someone is looking at the pictures of your website. But then the search engine doesn't read the images. It only reads the text that you've associated with those images on the back end of your website. So understanding how to optimize your pages and the elements within the pages of your website is very important. Even the structure of how your sub pages of your domain are set up so that the URL strings aren't crazy long, helps search engines find it. And I mentioned the concept of linking and backlinking. This also plays a huge role in your search engine optimization, because if you're not linking out to other sites and to other pages within your site, it kind of diminishes the value of your site. So the more linked you are the better. Though, this has a little bit of negative side effect to it. If you have too many links, we went through kind of an era of link only kind of sites where there were all these websites that, they had very limited content, but links for days. So they were coming up really high in search engine rankings. And you don't kind of want to put that falsity forward either, because that's going to impact your digital presence and your overall brand. You want to sort of maintain the integrity of that brand. There's also online listings and directories. And, we're going to talk about a couple niche ones for our area that we have. But for your business, this is something that is part of your market research that can be very important to find. And when you're in these online listings and directories, you want to make sure that you maintain consistency. Your name, address, and phone number is always the same. If you post your hours, they're accurate, they're the same. There's a description of your business that's consistent and you're in the same categories. If you're allowed to add images and customer reviews or different things to those online directories, that they're high quality and that you're monitoring those reviews and responding if there's negative reviews. It's great when we get positive reviews and we love them. But if you get a negative review, you have to take that opportunity to respond. The companies that don't respond to negative feedback, the sentiment definitely decreases for them. I can tell you from personal habits, if there are negative comments about a product or service and the provider has responded to them in a way that I feel is appropriate, I'm still going to go forward with them. But if they responded poorly or didn't bother to respond to it at all, it either looks like they're not paying attention or they didn't care about that feedback. So I'm probably not going to move forward. Email marketing. So this is kind of the hot button right now. I don't know about you, but I am probably getting 20 to 50 email newsletters now on a regular basis. I don't want to say weekly, but it feels like that. Everybody's got an online newsletter, and this has become a very easy way to provide updated content, but a lot of it just ends up getting automatically deleted. So you want to make sure that it's easy for your prospects and customers and partners to opt in and opt out of being a part of the newsletter. When they want in, you want them to get in very easily. When you want out, you want to provide them that out, but be as obvious about it. You definitely want to make sure that it's clear that they can opt out and that you've provided them a mechanism to do that in every single email. You don't want to neglect that because it can be seen as sort of a risk or a practice that's not appropriate. You want to try to personalize your email marketing as much as possible. And if you're familiar with any of the common platforms, such as MailChimp or Constant Contact, they allow you to create segments of your customers and tag your customers and get very specific about what a customer should be exposed to so that you can send targeted emails to customers based on their desires. You want these emails to have a clear call to action. Um, I can't tell you how many businesses will send out an email newsletter that's kind of just a regurgitation of either what they've posted on social media or what's on their website. Yeah, our store's open today and we're still selling blah blah blah. We hope to see you soon. It's not going to cut it. It's got to be something different. It's got to be engaging. It's got to be interesting and it's got to ask me to do something. It's got to tell me, "Hey, we've got a special, we've got a sale." we want you to see this new video, this new content, this, whatever it may be. It's got to be calling to your customers to do something with that email and not just, oh, great, another email from this business, I'll just delete. And it's similar in concept to content marketing, right? When you're creating and sharing valuable, relevant, and consistent content online, you're establishing yourself as an authority to attract and engage your audience and drive a conversation of some kind. So you want that to be, again, aligned with your brand, your voice, and your vision. And you want to make sure that that content, and I'm talking about blog posts and articles. If you create infographics or podcasts or videos, whatever that content is, you have to get it out to your market, and you have to optimize it for search engines as well. And you might have to distribute it on multiple channels to actually get it to the market you want to get it to. And then there's the options to pay for online advertising. You can pay for Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, Angie. We're going to talk about a lot of different options. But all the areas we kind of talked about above, they do have costs to them. Yes, you can create a free website. You can create social media presence for free. You can run Google Analytics and understand your search engine optimization without a cost, and participate in online directories, and even, the base MailChimp or Constant Contact, I believe, are free online marketing platforms. But at the end of the day, you probably have to put some funds into getting more eyes on your digital presence. And then, like I said, we can't improve what we're not measuring. So that final element of the digital presence is analyzing it and tracking it, monitoring it, pulling those analytics from your website, looking at the social media insights that you're provided on the different platforms, looking at the responses to your email marketing and content marketing, a concept called conversion tracking, which is tracking, when a customer gets your online, your email market, for instance. So a customer gets your newsletter. Did they click on it, go to your website and sign up for something or buy something? Were they converted into an actual customer? And that conversion tracking is where you're going to figure out how to get to your ROI, or your return on the investment that you've put into this digital presence. So we've all heard, the customer is always right. Well, the customer is always the key to our business, right? Without a business, or without a customer, do we have a business? There's a great argument to that. Can you create content without having an audience to view that content? And as a singer-songwriter who's released very few of my written songs, I can tell you that, sure, you can create that content all you want, but without someone to watch it, it's just for your own personal entertainment. So determining what appeals to your customer, what we're going to talk about, ideal customer avatar, is going to be the key to developing this digital presence that you need. And, the time that you spend researching your customer now is time saved in effort that you could spend down the line if you have to make an abrupt right turn and completely rebrand your business. That's something that you obviously want to avoid as much as possible. But first impressions are the most important. And if you put something out there and maybe didn't have the time or the money to put in the research that you wanted to put in, that first impression might not be what you want it to be. And then that customer may not come back. So you want to put in the time up front to make sure that first impression is just what you want it to be. But of course, as soon as you think you've got it, you've grasped it, and I know this customer, I've got it down, they're going to change. There'll be a new social media platform. There'll be artificial intelligence. There's disruptive concepts to business all the time. And this is going to change your customer. And so just like everything, we're going to measure important key aspects of our customer profile as that evolves throughout our business. So that market research that I talked about, some people really love digging into data, collecting it from all the different sources and organizing it out, but it's not for everybody. And, if you can't afford to hire somebody, but you have to do this, you just want to try to lay out your goal, right? So right now we're talking about researching for your digital presence. So you're going to be figuring out your customers' information, your competitive information, and any industry-wide information about your business that you can use to pull those insights into developing your digital presence. So you're going to collect data from other local businesses. You know, um, we have tools available in our worksheet here. Oh, this is the PDF version. Pacific County has data. You can also get data from our resources at the library. Oh, I got this one up already. So if you go to our wonderful library systems website, trl.org, which if any of you are millennial MTV viewers like me, TRL meant something very different growing up. So this is it's just funny every time I see it, but we are blessed with a library system that gives us so many incredible resources. We talked in our last call about some of the technology assessments and training that is available here, but they also have all of these sort of business data opportunities where you can learn about company profiles, pull financial data, and then you can cross this with other data that you can get from the Pacific County Economic Development Council site about the different industries. And from there, if you're still digging deeper, our government, census.gov, has all kinds of crazy deep data about the residents of our nation. So you can look at things like what are our population demographics here on the peninsula. And just looking at this, you can see the obvious call out on the peninsula here is that we have a very tight age range of most of our residents. Most of our residents are in this 55 to 75-year-old range. So this already, if you're primarily targeting customers here in our local area, this is a huge insight to know, hey, you know, a good 60% or more of my population is in this age range. So what are their habits? What social media platforms do they use? Wink, wink, it's Facebook. Um, but they also utilize some other niche platforms, and there are other ways to target their online habits. They're not as comfortable with mobile devices, but still have to use them. So if you're sort of a low vision person in this age range, which is very common, and you're looking on your mobile device, you probably have your screen size turned all the way up. So if I'm building a website and I'm targeting customers on the Long Beach Peninsula from 55 to 75, I'm going to make sure that my website, when it's viewed on a mobile device, has a really good look if it happens to be scaled to the highest visibility or the largest text. But there is just a sea of data available for you on the web. So getting it all together and organized can be challenging. When you're doing it, I've built out some tools to try to help you. And in this toolkit, the first page we have here is our ideal customer avatar. So we're going to use the research tools that we have available to us, including just using web searching tools. Now you have to have a critical eye when you're viewing any data that you search from sites that aren't, say, as official as census.gov or Pew Research or our county information sites that are available to us, any of the library resources. Those are sort of vetted sources of information where you know the data that you're getting is accurate, at least for the time it was measured. If you're just searching with, Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine of choice you have, you might get false data. And you can use artificial intelligence tools to help you with market research. 100%. I recommend doing this. You can ask. In fact, let's ask ChatGPT some fun question in this instance and see what kind of a result we get. Because unfortunately, the struggle with the current artificial intelligence tools that we're dealing with is that they're in their infancy. They're just coming out onto the market. Last year was a big boom, and here's artificial intelligence, and everybody can touch it and use it and integrate it. And now it's in our Windows. We have Microsoft Copilot embedded, and we can ask our different home automations, Siris and Googles and Alexas. We can ask them all more complex questions now. But artificial intelligence hallucinates. It provides flat out lies sometimes. So you very much have to verify the data you get from artificial intelligence from multiple sources. But let's ask it about creating an ideal customer avatar. Let's say I own an acupuncture business in Long Beach on and I need to define my ideal customer avatar. Please provide details on my ideal customer so I can market to them. And the more specific you are with artificial intelligence, the more detail you're going to get back out. Um, but you'll see it kind of spit out similar data to what you saw in my spreadsheet, because this is the example business that I'm using for purpose. I actually recently developed a website for Peninsula Acupuncture out of Long Beach. It is penacu.co or penacu.co. So this is a business that's just building its digital presence. And obviously, we have to build out our brand book and our ideal customer avatar as part of our digital presence process. So I'm going to utilize the tools that I have available through market research and artificial intelligence to help build that out. And if you look what it provided me, I provided some of the just basic information here in the slide, but the chatbot provided us some very detailed information back. It provided an estimated age. This is kind of younger than the peninsula demographic that we saw, but that might mean that it feels that people above this age range aren't as interested in acupuncture. This might be the target range for acupuncture. Let's say you questioned something about it. You can ask ChatGPT. Um, Long Beach 10 has a higher population over 55 than under. Why is my ideal customer younger? And this is what you'll find. It just changed its approach. It didn't tell you why. It provided the first answer and why the first answer might be incorrect. But it came back and changed its tune and decided instead that Carol would be our target. And now we can start to see, the demographics. Um, and this is again where artificial intelligence is not going to provide you the true intelligence that you probably have about your customer. Or, where else would you get this information to develop your ideal customer avatar? We're going to pause for questions after I summarize this, but um, there are multiple ways that you can get data about what might be your ideal customer. First of all, survey the customers that you have today, or do a self-observation survey of your customers today. Maybe you don't collect demographics about your customers, like their age or, their education level, or maybe you don't think that plays into your brand as much. You know kind of where your customers have been. If you start to collect that information about them, you can start to figure out how to define your customer moving forward and bring in, okay, of these customers, these were the factors that were common amongst them that made them most likely to engage, that made them most likely to close on either that product sale or that services sign up or volunteering for your nonprofit. Whatever it might be, you created that conversion. So those are the key points that you want to track when you're building out in your worksheet who your ideal customer is. And you don't have to have just one. You might have multiple ideal customers depending on what your product market is. I actually have two different ideal customer profiles. I have sort of an individual customer profile that wants to learn more about technology and wants to take private, one-on-one consulting. And then I have a business entity profile that needs to grow their business or, entrepreneurship through technology. So you might have multiple ideal customers, and that's okay. You're collecting this data so that you know how to cater to them, and you can start to track the elements of their um, of that overall person in order to determine how to best market to them. And these sort of knowing your customers' pain points is knowing how you can fix them. Knowing their buying behaviors is knowing how you can feed into that. So let's look back at what ChatGPT gave us for just a minute here and see if it gave us some. So she's got needs for chronic pain management, sleep disturbances. Oh, this poor woman has a lot of needs for acupuncture. She actually fits in all of the categories that acupuncture helps with. She's active online. So we want to, and on Facebook, she likes to read online forums. So I might want to find out what wellness forum is most popular with females in this age range in this area so that I can post an advertisement in that forum or maybe write a blog for that forum about how successful I've been with my acupuncture services in the past. And that's how building out this ideal customer avatar is going to help you build out your digital presence. And now I will give us a little pause. Are there any questions out there? Feel free to send them in the chat or unmute, and I'm happy to answer. All right. And feel free to drop a question in the chat at any time, and we're going to have a couple more stopping points along the way. We're about an hour into the session now, so there'll be 2 more points before the end where I'll pause for questions. But if it's relevant to what I'm talking to, I might stop and answer. So feel free to drop in any questions along the way. So now you know your customer, you've defined your ideal customer avatar, but what about your competition? You need to know what the competition is already doing out there. So in your online presence management, I have some tools here to help you with analyzing your competitors because you want to track this data so that you understand where your competitors are now and you can keep updating it as you're moving forward. And you can even include yourself along here too to see how you progress as you enhance your digital presence. But what this allows you to do is, put in your different competitors, list their website, and just look over. How would you rate their design? 1 to 5. How would you rate the navigation? Does it have good content? It may be hard to tell how optimized it is, but here you're kind of rating how easy was it to find in a search engine, and then how responsive was it on my mobile device? Yeah, it looked great when I was looking at it on my 32-inch screen, no problems. But then I looked at it on my phone and it was all jumbled up and the pictures were all scrunched or too big. So what was the mobile responsiveness of their site? Did they have social media integration with their site? Was there a lot of back and forth, like go to my website for my social media, go to my social media from my website? Were there posts from their social media on their website in a newsletter form or some other way? And what was since you're the user as you're going through these sites, you're kind of assuming what your customer is going to be experiencing on that site for user experience and rating that. And then I have a sheet here with similar tools for measuring them on social media. And we're kind of still focused on the website aspect of the class, but we'll talk about the different aspects of a rating for social media. But what's important to understand here is that each competitor is going to have multiple social media platforms, likely, just as you likely will. It's rare that you would just want to utilize one social media platform, but you might want to start with one and work your way into the others. Um, Facebook or Meta makes it very easy to kind of get into both Facebook and Instagram at the same time. We'll take a look at that. But this is a way for you too to start to rate and look at what the competition is doing out there. And you might have to go back to that market research, to those resources at the library, Census.gov, Pew Research, the other platforms. There are also paid research tools. Like one of the links I included was for D&B. Dun and Bradstreet, they are one of the most well-known sort of business data collecting firms, and you can pay to sort of have your profile with Dun and Bradstreet. You can also pay to be able to search that data on Dun and Bradstreet. There are a lot of these in the business to business space, like Zoom Info, where you can look at different businesses and find out kind of what the business buying habits are, what their revenue is, and different things. It's not as related to the businesses here on the peninsula, though, so I didn't include that link, but there are those resources out there. So you have this kind of tooling here in your worksheet to help you do a bit of a competitive analysis as you're defining your digital presence so that you at least feel that you're getting ahead of your competition when you're creating this digital presence. So now you have your information about your ideal customer, you know what your competition is doing. Now it's time to define your brand. What is your brand's identity? This is the visual, the verbal, the elements that represent the brand that distinguish you from your other competitors and like businesses. It encompasses all of your visual assets, your logo, your colors, your fonts or typography, the different sort of stock imagery or feel that you want your brand to have. But it also includes the verbal tone of your brand, the messaging, your identity. It conveys your personality as a brand, and it's more about how the brand presents itself visually and verbally to the outside world. And then you have your values as a brand. What matters to your customers that you want your brand to stand for? What is your brand's promise? This is your brand's like statement or commitment that you're making to your customers that's outlining your unique value or benefit that they should expect to receive consistently when they engage with this brand. So, a brand promise for the acupuncture would be, stress-free healing and a calming experience. The promise that you'll leave our acupuncture session feeling better than when you came in. That is the promise. It should be authentic. It should be, relevant, and it should be a little differentiated from your competitors, so that promise that you come out of the acupuncture session feeling healed, feeling more energized, feeling better. That's not, that's probably common amongst all of the acupuncturists. So you want to sort of hone it in to really what your customers should perceive about your individual business. As part of your brand identity, you need a brand logo. It doesn't have to be anything gimmicky. It can just be using a certain font to write out the title of your business name in a specific color every time. And that's your logo. As long as you're consistent with it, which is the final aspect here is brand consistency. You need to, once you set it, you have to continue to push it. Everything utilizes the same fonts, the same colors, the same imagery. So let's look a little bit at the brand book that I've given you here. And it starts off with, some very general information about your business. but you want to, describe what you want out of your logo here too, because your logo may change over the course of your business. Ideally, you're maintaining it as consistently as possible. But like I said, disruption happens, modernization happens. So if you sort of maintain the versioning of this brand book as it changes, you can look back at the history and see, when we first started the Modem Lisa, my logo was, me and the Mona Lisa pose with the colors, but I'm going to change that to eliminate the colors and just go with green and white to stand out more, look more digital, or if I'm going to modify that along the way. I kind of want that history. I want to know the evolution of my brand, but more importantly, the brand book is for capturing and tracking what you're moving into as a brand. And it can also be helpful. We talked about us being the wearing all the hats and doing all of our marketing and doing all of our web design and probably all of our graphic design that goes in along with that too. But maybe someday you'll be able to hire someone to do it for you. And if you have a brand book, you can just hand it over to them and say, these are the ways I define my brand today. So as you service me, these are the things, these are the elements we need to maintain consistency with. These are the elements we can improve upon. This, you want to maintain your values, your vision, and your mission. These are things that probably won't change in the course of your business unless you find that your mission or values are ineffective or inappropriate along the way. But these are core aspects of your business that you want to maintain. And then I have a tab here for colors, and you'll see there's different elements that will be a part of your website, a part of your print materials and social media. And you'll want to have different colors to define them. You're going to want to have a palette. And you can look in a lot of different free tooling, but Adobe has sort of a paid concept where you can define go back to the beginning here. But you can use what's called this color wheel here to create your theme, or what's showing here is your palette. So I cannot stand this current colors, so I'm going to move them around to colors that I find more appealing. And now you'll see my palette has changed. And you can download this palette so that you have it available. But you'll see here are the web reference numbers for the color. And that's what I have listed here in the setting, because this is going to translate to, as you design your website, the colors that you list your fonts, your backgrounds, and your different elements on the website as. And you can also build out with the Adobe Color Wheel, you can build out gradients from existing files. So let's say I felt like this image represented my business. Here it's pulled in the key colors from the image and developed a gradient from it. This is a gradient with 3 stops. You can add more. And it gives you all of the data about those colors so that you can use them on your website. It can extract the palette from the picture. And you'll see here it has different modes. This one's a colorful one. We could have a deep one that's the darker colors, even darker, or we could have it muted. So as you kind of work through defining your colors, there are tools out there that can help you figure out from maybe an existing logo or existing images, what colors would really play into creating a good theme. And then we have fonts or typography. So these are example font names, and there are fonts that come default with different systems. Unfortunately, this isn't consistent across every device. Windows PC will have different fonts than a Mac laptop or anything running Mac OS will have. Your Android mobile devices have different fonts native to them than your iOS devices. But there are sort of standardized web fonts, such as the Google web fonts, that are um, they're consistent across web platforms and mobile devices, and they're easily referenced and used in your website. And you can download them to your local machine. You can easily utilize these fonts in all of your materials, whether it be online or print. So I highly recommend looking into the Google fonts. There are a lot of them. But this is not your only stop for fonts. Adobe, if you utilize products like Canva or other solutions for developing your different materials or website, your website is going to come with standard fonts. But what you want to make sure is whatever you choose, when you look at it on a web from a computer, when you look at it on your mobile device, when you print it out, that it has a consistent look and feel. And we're going to talk about this a little further, but it's probably going to require testing, and not just from you, but testing from people that have devices that you don't have, and testing from people that look at things differently than you. Maybe people that have low or impaired vision, maybe somebody that speaks another language or is from another culture. They can tell you if it's difficult to read or understand your content for their culture or their language. And you'll see that there's 1,600 font families here, and that's not individual fonts, but families. So like if I select Poppins here, there's 18 different styles that come with Poppins, which I'll tell you is a very clearly read web font. It's not necessarily my favorite or go-to. Everybody has their kind of feel for font or typography, I feel like. But this has a great readability. You can type in your own text here, so you can see what your text would look like in that font. And these are the different weights. So when you select this font, you get all of these different options with it. And then you also want to be mindful. Almost all of the Google fonts are under the open font license, which means that you can utilize them without having to pay. You can use them in commercial projects and make money off of them without having to pay a royalty fee or any kind of fee to the creator of the font. But that's a good note to make at this point as you're building out your brand, and maybe you're deciding on images and elements and different things. Every artifact of a website has a potential licensing concern beneath it, whether it's an application that's running your project that has terms and conditions of how you utilize that service that might say, well, you can utilize our platform to make a website for a nonprofit, but you can't use our service to make a website for free for a business. So whenever you're signing up for services, downloading a product, an image, or any type of online material, I encourage you, I beg of you, please read the terms and conditions. They may seem daunting when you first look at something like this that says, and this didn't even take me directly to the license itself. But if I look at the direct text of the license, it's got a preamble and definitions and permissions. It's not very long though. but almost all of them will have these similar factors of permissions and conditions where you're allowed to do something, hopefully free of charge, and there's no restrictions on who it was, and I can use it for all of the purposes I may want to use it for. But you're not allowed to modify them unless you have explicit written permission. So this is an important licensing rule of these fonts to be aware of. If you wanted to make your own font, and I know for some people, I just went and blew up your minds. You can create your own font. I have done this in the past. It is a thankless endeavor because you create a font and you have to really have a dedicated purpose. I tried creating a font just to create a brand logo for my band that matched the way I hand drew it, which just happens to be tattooed on my leg. So I wanted my brand to match my handwriting, my tattoo. I wanted it to be consistent. And that meant I had to develop my own font. Now, like any true artist, I didn't just reinvent the wheel. I copied from someone else. Imitation is the purest form of flattery, as they say, but stealing is the finest, the greatest form of flattery, something like that. But I took what's completely open source font, and open source is a licensing concept that means that you are allowed to modify and manipulate the actual code of that product, whatever that product or code may be. So in the case of an open source license font, this is technically an open source license, but it's restricted. So it's not copy left enough for us to modify it without getting permission. But there are some that are, and I utilized an open font and just made modifications to the typography to make it look like my handwriting. And there are a lot of handwriting fonts um, that were kind of created under that premise that they wanted to have a sort of match for their handwriting. Uh, of course, one's not going to pop up right away. I always love fonts in different languages. They look so neat. But I don't see any handwriting. This one's kind of a little closer to handwriting, but you get the idea. So now that I've diverged on fonts, you also want to track the images that you use as part of your brand. Multiple reasons. You will need the details about these images when you upload them to your website to use them. And these are aspects that you need for every image that you upload on your website. You need to have what's called image alt text or alternative text. And this represents an actual description of the image that they're seeing. So here I'm describing her logo, and that is, you can see it's two koi fish, or as I've described it here, an AI generated image, because I did not draw it by hand myself, of two koi fish swimming in a yin yang pattern, one blue and one orange. So that doesn't say this is the Peninsula Acupuncture logo. Why doesn't it say that? Because alt text is first and foremost developed for screen reading applications for the blind or low or impaired vision individuals. So they're running software on their computers so that they can still utilize a computer just like we would. But instead of being able to see and read what's on the screen or interpret it, they have software that's reading it to them. So if you don't have this alt text, it's not reading them anything. It could just be reading them the file name, and then you're not getting any value out of that. Now, here's the surprising second factor of alt text, because In one instance, I work for an artist, and I noticed that the images on the artist's website did not have any alt text. And the sort of office manager looked at me and she goes, "Why would a blind person or a low vision person want to look at pieces of art online?" And the answer is they don't necessarily, but they might go to your website and they still need that data. So when the search engines spiders are crawling over your websites for that data, the alt text is where they're pulling information from. So if you don't have that data there, the search engine is going to say, I'm not sure about this. This didn't have the data that I need, so I'm not going to give it a higher ranking. And because it's not as accessible, which everybody needs to make sure that their website is accessible to disabled. And that can be low vision, that can mean, um, kind of accommodating your text for people that are challenged with dyslexia or other reading concerns. There are a lot of accessibility tools out there that can help make your site optimal. Um, but it just kind of knocks your rank down if you're not accessible because the search engines want to promote sites that are the most accessible. And having a tracking of the images that you've used, knowing what they represent, what you're using them for, is going to help you to develop your web page plan. And chicken and the egg, you might be adding the details about the images you're adding as you're adding them to the pages, but you want to keep this tracked. It's like that living, breathing thing that you want to have the info from. Your website might have a frequently asked questions section. So you want to track what are those questions that I have and what are the responses. And these also speak to your brand. One of the acupuncture questions is acupuncture, let's go to her little facts point, does acupuncture work? How many treatments will I need? These kind of speak to the customer, the competition, everything that we've built together. You want to slowly build together this information and have it outside of your website so that you have it maintained separately in case something happens to your website. This brand book is also there to help you easily rebuild or build new. You want to define the sections of your website and what text and images are associated with those sections. If you offer services, you want to use this area to define out those services so that you make sure you're consistently listing them on your website and social media as part of your brand. And then what channels are you using to promote your website? We're going to get into this a little more in the end section about ROI. But knowing, oh, yep, I updated my profile on Google Maps. So now if you search for acupuncture on Google Maps, we should see, we should see, there it is, Peninsula Acupuncture. And, the newer rankings are still going to be lower and rankings without reviews. This goes into that care and feeding. You can put yourself in the online directories and search engines and different platforms. But if you're not yet getting the customer funnels, getting the reviews, getting the clicks, it's going to take you that time to get it bulked up there. And here, I left this blank because we have the ideal customer avatar in our other sheet, but you might have multiple customer personas that you want to track here. As you start to gain feedback from your different channels, you're going to want to track that and track if you've used that feedback on your website or to promote your social media, maybe in a newsletter or a blog post. Um, was it good or bad? You want to track that feedback and hopefully see that it improves so that this last point is that you're tracking your position, which is kind of where you feel you rank amongst your competitors or like businesses in your market, and your public sentiment. Does the general population have a good feeling about your business? Does it say, yeah, I really want to try acupuncture because this Peninsula acupuncture just sounds so relaxing and calming, and she's had such success from her other stories. I really want to try that out. And this will help you too. If you have a low public sentiment, then you want to find ways to improve your brand and tweak things in order to change that sentiment so that you're not stuck in that same boat. So let's talk about planning the different elements of your website. Like any plan, we need to define clear goals and objectives. We need to know what we want to get out of this website. Do we want people to come to our brick and mortar? Do we want people to volunteer for events? Do we want people to buy products and services? Define what that is for you, and then you can determine how to get it. So, for me, I'm trying to get people to sign up for classes. So my objective may be improve class attendance by 10% each class with my digital presence. So then you want to make sure you're implementing those effective branding elements. You're maintaining the consistency. You're not using colors that make people visually vomit. You're not using a font that's difficult for people to read, or when it's expanded large, makes your website look unreadable, like we said. You want to design that user-centric experience. The website is a business tool for you, but it's a home base for your customer. So while you're designing your website to achieve your goal, remember at the end of the day that it's your user that's navigating it. So you have to think like them and not necessarily like you think, because you may think, oh, it makes sense for me to put, scheduling under services because I know that, you're going to want to pick the service that you schedule. But your customer may not know that. They may think, oh, I just came to the website to try to find scheduling. So I want that to be highlighted. If that's the user experience that they're looking for, you want to cater to that. You want to have compelling content. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be direct. It's got to be the best quality you can put out, but it should be very clear, concise. Websites, social media, email marketing, you're not necessarily writing novels here. You should be using clear statements, and you're telling a story that should be easily understood by anyone. You want to use, search engine optimization practices, um, but you also want to optimize for performance and speed. Making sure your images are not such a high quality that your web page takes minutes to load. People want websites that are snappy. People want to be able to navigate that website very intuitively without pausing for information to load. So if your website is slow, um, or different parts of it take time to load, um, there may be aspects that you need to improve. I recently started taking over some websites and found that their hosting provider was hosting them off a server in Virginia. So this creates a lag just because it's so far geographically, and that's not really far. It doesn't speak to the whole delay. But if my target audience is here on the Long Beach Peninsula, I want to use a service that has West Coast data centers. I don't want to use East Coast data centers or European data centers because I want the data to get out as fast as possible to my customer, and it needs to be geographically as close as possible. Now, there are what's called content delivery networks that can improve that. If you have more of a global presence and you want to create a website in one place that's just as fast and accessible anywhere in the world, those content delivery networks can help do that by sort of creating a cached environment in these different geographic regions that are accessible to your customers rather than sending them all the way back to your primary server. And finally, you want to review and test your site and ask other people to do it. Ask for feedback. A single set of eyes is not enough. And I can tell you this because I often fall into this trap where I am unable to sort of wrangle in someone to help me to review my website. You can hire people, you know, try to get your family members in there, you know, whoever you think will offer you an honest opinion. So they should be understanding, interpreting, you know, your clear calls to action on your website, your navigation. They should be, you know, giving you feedback on every process of the website if possible. But if you don't have someone to do that, you might need to step away, get yourself a separate cup of coffee, maybe even wait a day after you've created it and go back and then review what you've done before you actually make it public. But having a second set of eyes is awesome if possible. So there's a lot of platforms to choose from when it comes to developing your website. There's more options than ever. And you want to think about, now that you've defined your customer and you've figured out your competition, you have your brand kind of determined and what you want the goals of your website to be. So all of those are going to play factors into deciding what platform you pick. And I've given you another tool in your online presence management workbook that outlines. I don't want to forget to go back and mention that I did put in some goals here for you to give you an idea of what goals you might want to set for your website. But now I've provided you a sort of template for comparing the different website providers that you might want to look into. And obviously, you kind of got the basics about what they are, um, but you have different options. You'll see here there's like a website builder and then WordPress hosting. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between these platforms. So there are what are called proprietary platforms that are very common nowadays. You've probably seen advertisements on TV for these platforms like Wix and Squarespace. GoDaddy is a little different because they do have a proprietary website builder, but they also offer other options. But with Wix and Squarespace and these like services, they're providing you a very easy platform to develop your website, almost like you're developing a PowerPoint or a document. Everything's drag and drop. You have templates to build from. It has integration with the tools that you need. It can be very easy, but unfortunately, any time that you spend building your website in these platforms is dedicated to these platforms. You cannot take your Wix website and move it to Weebly or GoDaddy. It's in Wix, and if you have to move to a different platform, you have to move it entirely. There's even, if you utilize the Square devices to accept payments, they offer you a tool to build your website too. It's not Squarespace, that's different, but it's Square. square. But there again, it's in that application forever. And should you need to make a change for whatever reason, you have to completely rebuild everything that you've done. That's not to say that these platforms are bad, but there is always that risk. And the other risk that you face with these is that they offer you a lot of basic functionality, but then there are a slew of things you can add on. So you can kind of ended up getting buried in add-ons and the cost can add up quickly. So you want to be very mindful of that. Now, the platform that I use that is very popular throughout the industry is called WordPress. And the reason it's so popular is because it's available in a wide variety of options. It's available for you to set up and configure entirely on your own as an open source application or as a managed service where a hosting provider is doing all of the backend work and just providing you your WordPress environment to work in. WordPress is so widely used and so accessible that there's over 60,000 different plugins. This is a double-edged sword. Not all plugins are created equal. Not all plugins are free. There's a lot of duplicative plugins. There's some malicious plugins on the market that you have to watch out for that are created by people that want malicious access to the data on your site. So you do have to have a bit of a level of technical confidence if you're choosing WordPress as your platform, but it still can be just as easy to use as some of those other proprietary platforms. And the great thing about it is you can pick up your WordPress site and drop it somewhere else. And I'll give you a direct example of this that I use in my real life. So I am helping out the Water Music Society with their website. And you'll see here, it takes a little time for their site to load. And I was trying to explain to um, the owners of the Water Music Society site that it's because of that server in Virginia. So in order to do that, I made a backup of their site and then moved it to where I host my WordPress sites, which we'll talk about in a second, which is Amazon Web Services. So now I have copied their entire site, and in just a few minutes, I'm able to make another version of it in what's called Stage. Second, let me get that for you. Just don't want to give away any of my sensitive data when I sign into my Amazon account here, and I need my multi-factor authentication, always using your extra layers of security protection. So here, I'll give you a little peek into, this is um, an application within Amazon Web Services called Lightsail that allows you to quickly spin up small pre-built image server environments such as WordPress. So here I have built a staging site for the Water Music Society, copied this entirely and moved it here so that I could show them when we try to load this site, it comes up instantly because it's on an AWS server sitting in Oregon and they're optimized in every way, unlike the other hosting provider that they're currently using. So even when it comes to determining, if you determine that you're going to use WordPress, you then have to determine how you're going to utilize WordPress. And you can use a managed service where, and I've provided some of these in the digital presence worksheet as well, where we have some different dedicated WordPress hosting options. So they will set up all of the back end of the WordPress, whereas in AWS, I have to actually spin up the server that WordPress is installed on and manage and maintain that entire environment. I have to manage the DNS and tying it to my specific domain name and make sure that the SSL certificate and the security for that website is all in place, whereas a managed hosting provider can take care of that for you. Some of the differentiating factors as you start to build out your web provider compare, I didn't list it as an aspect here, but the concept of backing up and or having a staging environment to work on your website in before it goes into what's production or posted to the public. Those are some key differentiators between hosting providers. That functionality provides you a lot of support. You want to have a consistent backup mechanism. Having a staging site to make your changes in before you take it to production can save you from making a big mistake or breaking something on your website that requires you to completely rebuild. There are often updates to the entire WordPress application or some of the larger plugins. And when those updates happen, if something goes wrong and you're doing that update in your production site, it can take it down and you might have to rebuild it. Now, if you have a backup, luckily you won't have to completely rebuild it. So, and before you run any updates, if you don't have a staging site, make sure you run a backup first. But WordPress is just very ubiquitous to the web environment now. And I'll show you a little bit of the sort of the back end. You can see up here, I'm logged into their site. So I see kind of some of the tools for working on their site. And this is in the staging environment. So you'll see it'll say things like you're in safe mode because this isn't a production site. Not everything is going to function to its full capacity. But you'll see here I can create posts and pages. I can manage my media library. It's not a complex system once you start getting into it, but it does have more of a learning curve than, say, the Wix and the Squarespace web builders have off the bat. And you have the option to run an actual hard-coded website too, or to develop your website in an application like Dreamweaver, where you're actually writing out all the code yourself. Now, I don't think that anybody signing up for these classes is going to be a real in-depth web developer. Even I have not actually hard-coded HTML, CSS, PHP. These are the common web development languages. I haven't hard-coded any of that in years because these platforms, WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, platforms were even around back when I very first started creating websites. You could kind of create a page in a PowerPoint style application and export it as HTML and then upload it to a website. You could use products like Front Page, which used to be Microsoft's web development tool. It's kind of still embedded in SharePoint if you look deeply. But I'm probably getting way off on a tangent here, but these cloud platforms offer options for creating both static or dynamic web pages as well, but they are sort of the higher level of technical savvy that comes with the highest level of control over everything that goes into those environments. but also the highest level of responsibility. You have to make sure everything's installed and set up and secure and working properly, and everything from the ground up is your responsibility. So you want to really, use that comparison sheet to start collecting the different um, comparison factors that are most important to your business. And, understanding your processes and what your requirements are what's going to lead into that. So you also want to just kind of consider integrations with sort of the rest of your technology environment. How are you going to manage it ongoing? What kind of support do they offer you if you need it? And do they have a good service level agreement, meaning they're going to provide you that uptime that you want for your website? Not everybody needs their website to be 100% available all the time. Well, I should say, there's no 100% available all the time websites. The most you're going to get is 99.9999, maybe another nine. But no one is ever going to say that their service is up all the time, but they are going to guarantee you, like you saw in these examples here, almost all of them are going to guarantee you these 4 nines. So we'll take another little pause here real quick before we jump into the next section and just see if there's any questions out there. All right, well, let's keep moving forward into social media. What a bear social media has become, but at the same time, what a door it's opened into our customers. Sure, probably none of us plan to have to invest the time and effort that we're putting into social media, but it can really make a difference in our business outcomes. So let's talk about sort of the primary platforms for this peninsula. I'm going to tell you are Facebook and Instagram. It's where consistently the most followers in this area are. And the good news is that it has a unified platform for managing your posts called Meta Business. If you haven't used this yet, I'll give you a little peek into my Meta Business account. Make sure I'm not showing you any of my customers, because I do have access to multiple business accounts because I help other people manage their social media. So here I am in mine, and it's kind of showing me messages that I have. Oh, that's interesting. It's not actually showing them to me. But it's offering me options to promote and boost my existing posts. I can see kind of how my recent ads have performed when I did use ads. And then over here, I have my content, and I can see I have all of this rich data about the posts that I create and how many people they reached when I ran an ad. Did I get a lot of engagements or comments? Was it shared? All of these go into, was this a successful post? And, what should I change about the post to make it more optimal and make it reach more people? I can also schedule from here. I could create posts in advance and then have them come out next week, next month, next year. The more you plan in advance, the easier your life is going to be. And it will cross post, as we saw here, this post was on Instagram and Facebook. And, there should be a lot more. Yeah, these are on Instagram and Facebook, because most of the time you only want to create that post once and have it be as compatible with both platforms as possible. There are nuances to both of the platforms that make, let's say, a Facebook post has more text option to it than an Instagram post where you have to have an image instead of maybe just linking to a video like you could with a Facebook post. There are going to be some limitations between the two, but for the most part, you can create one post and have it on both platforms and watch it perform instead of having to make two separate posts, which is great. And those ads, as you determine, what content you want to put out there, it'll give you different options for creating ads. Obviously I can boost things again, or I can create a new ad. And it offers you a lot of different options when you're determining your goal for the ad. A lot of us are just looking to promote our page or boost content. So if my goal is to promote my page and get more likes, I might want to have a budget of $35 a day, or $5 a day for 7 days a week. And these are all the different differentiators that are going to go into your ad. You'll see setting it up is not that complicated, and you can, kind of choose if you use all of the platforms. I've kind of changed, I have to change some of the factors up above in order for Instagram and Messenger to be applicable. But you can kind of get an idea for how these ads work. There is a little bit of upfront setup to it. Obviously, I had to link my payment account and different things like that. You saw down here where it listed my Pixel. I actually have a Pixel, so I'm not sure why it says no Pixel down there, but um, there are some different setup factors that go into the Meta business account. But I mentioned that, I work for other people supporting their websites and social media as well. You can bring in others to help you manage your social media. So I can have people that directly have control. I can invite whoever I want there, but I can also have partners, and those partners, might be other groups that share things with me. So there's kind of a lot that you can do with this, and it's great to have a unified platform, but this isn't, Meta is not the only social media on the market. Um, YouTube is also known as the world's second largest search engine. And when I was doing the research for this presentation, I had to like triple check that statement. I thought that was really crazy to me. Yes, it's owned by Google. So, Google being the number one search engine, it kind of makes sense. But really, legitimately, this is true as far as overall searches executed. It's Google search and then YouTube and then things like Bing and DuckDuckGo and all the other search engines. So this is a huge platform that people are on every day. And if you can create some kind of compelling video content, maybe it's you showing your products. Maybe it's you talking about your services as a provider. Maybe you're, like me and you're giving classes. So you want to create some short free tip tutorials to engage your audience. Um, there's a lot of value in YouTube, and it can be very easy to start to grow your channel. It can be hard to monetize. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing it as an aspect of your digital presence, but don't count on it necessarily for a monetization platform until you really get flowing with your content. Like there's kind of a rule of thumb, like don't even consider monetizing until you have over 100 videos posted on YouTube, because you're never going to get to the kind of, you have to have over 1,000 subscribers. They have to have viewed over 30 hours of content in the last 90 days, or over like 3 million shorts public views within the last 90 days. it can be difficult to get your YouTube channel to a point that it's actually able to monetize, but it can be a huge funnel for linking to your website, your other social media. You can utilize those selling links, like I mentioned earlier, if you're offering affiliate products like through Amazon affiliates. This can be a great way to sell those. People love watching things get unboxed and tried out for the first time. So if you have a product that you're trying to sell and you can get one of your existing customers or even a friend or family member to receive your product and video themselves opening it and experiencing it for the first time, that YouTube video could be huge for your business. And YouTube also offers paid advertising options to draw more traffic to your channel or website or business. So you can always consider those as well as an overall part of your budget. I didn't mention some of the other very public platforms like X, or what was formerly known as Twitter, and Threads. Those are like, Threads is Meta's answer to Twitter. Um, but these are good platforms for communicating your business depending on the niche. And they just don't happen to be as big with the population on the peninsula here, but they are big for marketing your business. So depending on, what you're marketing, that may be something to consider. And then there's these more video-based platforms like TikTok, Twitch, or Discord. They're still global, very predominant platforms. Twitch and Discord are kind of bigger in the gamer world. We know TikTok is that short consumption frame, so it's very much the younger generations that are in there. But these can be valuable for your business too. TikTok has been a game changer for a lot of local businesses that just want a quick and easy way to promote. They don't want to have to create a whole post. You can kind of just record yourself saying something real quick, drop it out there, and see where it goes. But it can be hard to measure and it can be hard to get views. So there's also like some really like industry area or interest specific platforms. Yelp, if you're a restaurant or in the hospitality industry, even service industry individuals, I've seen a lot now being reviewed on Yelp. They have a lot of different categories. And I actually just in my research on this popped up Yelp to look at local restaurants, and I had seen my friends walking into my Covios a couple days ago, and wouldn't you know it, they posted their experience on Yelp. So I know that there's an active local community reviewing things on Yelp. And if I had a profile there, people could start to review the services that I provide, and that could draw more traffic to my website, more traffic to my social media. So utilizing some of these specific platforms can be helpful as well as like an online directory kind of option, but that's more of a social media platform. There's Nextdoor. There's LinkedIn for business to business. I will tell you, the Nextdoor community around here is a little active, probably to the tune of 200 to 300 people. Whereas when we look at Facebook and Instagram, it's more to the tune of 1,500 to 3,000. So you kind of want to gauge your effort based on these as well. LinkedIn was kind of a dead zone for the peninsula business wise, but I think we'll see that change as we start to get some more advanced businesses, more technically savvy businesses going. There's platforms like Reddit and Pinterest, where people are just writing stories and comments and quirks and different things. And if you get in the right thread, your business could go viral. So you want to be aware of maybe specific forums that talk about your business market. or local forums. So I did look for some local Reddit groups and didn't really come up with much. So, you want to gauge your effort based on what you think you're going to get out of it. And then there's like industry ones like Thumbtack and Angie. These are for like subscribed services providers where you can be a provider on Angie or Thumbtack. And similar to care.com, you could say, I provide these services. People can find you, people can rate you. There are people on the peninsula utilizing these services today for their businesses and to find services. They aren't widely used. I'd say this is still kind of in that 1 to 300 use population. So not a lot here, but if your business is providing elderly care services, you should be on care.com. If you're a pet sitter, you should be on care.com. If you mow lawns, you should be on Thumbtack and Angie. If you provide gutter cleaning services, you should be on Thumbtack and Angie because they're going to come up when people search for these services online because they are the service industry sites. So just like our website, we've got to have clearly defined objective and goals for our social media plan. These are almost the same as the website ones. If you look, we're implementing effective brand elements. We're crafting compelling content. We're not just posting garbage. But here's where things get a little bit different. Not that you don't need a regular and manageable schedule with website maintenance and management. You do. But with social media, you really have to be consistent. So I've been kind of tiptoeing into having a YouTube channel, and I wanted to have a post at least every month on this project that I was working on. But I never committed that to my audience, and I never committed that to myself. So now the project has kind of fallen by the wayside, and I've lost some viewers because they were looking for that regular content to be coming in on that channel. So at the end, that last line, they didn't feel engaged. And if your customers don't feel like you're actually utilizing the social media to create the relationship connection with them, to maintain that ongoing back and forth and give them that feel that they have that very personal connection with you, you're not going to get your value out of your social media. But in your workbook, I have created social media platforms kind of comparison so you can consider what value you might find out of the different platforms, and you can start to estimate your costs based on your needs within these platforms. And I've given you kind of some of the basics to start with, but you might want to add Angie and Thumbtack and start to look into if those would be relevant to your business so that you can come back to your brand book and you can add these to your channels that you're utilizing to promote your digital presence. So now I was going to have us take another break, but we are getting close to being out of time and still have a lot more material to get through. So just real quick to check if you need a bio break. If not, I will go ahead and continue. I think we're all right to just continue on. So you've put all this effort in. Well, that work is just a waste if no one can ever find it. If no one can find your website, um, you've basically built a business card that's sitting in your pocket that you can't take out and give to anybody. So how do we get our website in front of people? We have to make sure that it's optimized for search engines. So we've talked a little bit about those search engine spiders crawling through your website for keywords. They are going to pick up on the text of your site, the text of your elements, the different metadata that you've put into your site. And keywords are going to collect. Obviously, on the acupuncture site, the word acupuncture is all over it. So keyword acupuncture, keyword health, wellness, healing, these different things that are repetitive on your site are the keywords that you're going to want to be primed on search engines, because if someone's looking for chronic pain healing, I want acupuncture to come up. So I'm going to focus on those keywords that I think will draw people in. And there are some tools listed here like Google Keyword Planner and SEMrush. You can pull this data on existing keywords today from Google Analytics. If we have time, I will show you that. But you also, so you want to understand those keywords, get optimized. You want on-page optimization. So this is sort of the process of making sure that the elements of your website have all those alt text. You have meta descriptions. You're utilizing the headers. Your content is full of those rich keywords. So each page, each part of your website needs to be optimized for the search engines. There's technical SEO, or sort of the structure of your site. I mentioned URLs. If your URLs are too crazy long, the spiders aren't going to index them. If we have time, we'll look at kind of the back end of a WordPress site, and I'll show you some of the tools that show you how your metadata stacks up against industry standards, so that you know if the structure of your page or site is optimal. Like I said, if that alt text isn't there, when those search engines go crawling, they're not going to index those images on your website. It's going to be just as if they weren't even there. And then, of course, you want quality content. If you have poor content that's not actually relevant, that's not valuable to your keywords, if it's a lot of garbage, it's not going to get your ranking higher. It's going to keep you down in the muck. So you want to be that clear, concise, and rich content full of the keywords that you want drawing people in. Linking. So I mentioned a few times the importance of linking. So when your site is backlinked from other websites, and when they link you, so you have a link for them, they have a link for you, this shows kind of a relationship to the search engines. Now, you do want it to be a quality website. And what you can find happens, especially if you're using a WordPress site, sometimes spam comments can include links in them and create sort of malicious traffic on your site. So you want to watch that too, because that can affect the reputation of your website if you have links that are from those spam providers. Within the Google Analytics console, you can see where this traffic is coming from and monitor it, so you can understand what links are bringing good or bad traffic to your site. Then there's the concept of local search engine strategies. Having a Google My Business listing, like I showed you for Peninsula Acupuncture, having that listing that comes up on Google Maps that has the hours of your business, maybe has a few pictures of your business. That's a lot of people just start their business search there on Google Maps. So you want to make sure that like we said, with all the different online communities, that you have that consistent message that you're putting in there, that consistent naming, address, hours, and everything, because that's going to build up in search engines as commonalities that keep funneling traffic back to your site. You also want to be patient when it comes to search engine optimization. Like I showed you, the Peninsula Acupuncture site, the ranking on the Google map was still kind of low. And that's just because it's new and nobody's been clicking on it yet. And nobody's been, um, rating and reviewing or commenting. But as that happens, it's going to tick up. It does take time. And you want to make sure that you're not um, making changes hastily, thinking that you've done something wrong when maybe it's just a timing issue and you have to give it a little more time to marinate. So this can be hard to gauge, but you want to give things at least 90-day increments to see how they do. And that might even be short for a website depending on your business, but it's kind of a general rule of thumb that you can use. And we don't have any more questions in the chat, so we're gonna keep pounding forward to hopefully get through this last part, which is so important. Tracking performance. Like I said, oh, you can't improve what you're not measuring. It does seem like I really, really love statistics and data. I don't. Just kind of got in the habit of understanding how important it is to businesses, and building out the different ways you can track these metrics is, it's a little bit exciting. But at the end of the day, what you're tracking is your return on investment. You want to know that I'm getting back at least what I'm putting in, if not more, right? So you're determining the value or the revenue that you generated, and value doesn't have to be in sales. Value might be in comments, followers. The value is what you find the value in, not somebody else. This is what is valuable to your business, and you have to associate a dollar value to it to kind of make this formula work out. So if you gained 100 more followers, that might bring you, this much closer to monetizing your YouTube channel. So you value each additional follower at $1, and you kind of work that out. It's because it's different for every business, this aspect can be a little difficult. Obviously, revenue generated is going to be a very straight shot to help you. But it may be that you saved some money instead. You know, building a new website saved you from having a high print marketing cost, or, some other cost that you've been using towards marketing. So then you want to subtract that from what you've invested. And that's the value of your time and the value that you spent cash wise. And then you want to divide that by the total investment and multiply it by 100. And that formula will show you what your return on investment was. And, like it says here, you have to kind of track the metrics that will tell you if you've gotten that return. Website traffic, conversion rates, leads generated, and those sales, that revenue that you may have generated from it. It could be donations, it could be attendance, whatever brings that return to your business. And then you need to do the same thing for social media. And it's got a the very same formula here. There's just different considerations when you're talking about how you measure that return on investment for social media. first of all, you might be putting a lot more effort into social media than your website, depending on your business. Keeping those customers happy and engaged can be very time consuming. So if you're equating your hourly rate to that, the balance could get tipsy at times. But you want to know, how close am I to getting a return on investment? Am I in the negative right now? Am I putting more in than I'm getting out? And you do have to be patient again on those outcomes, but you want to be tracking it. And I've given you in the online presence management workbook a way to track your expenses. This should be moved over a little. They should have been closer together. A way to track your time for both social media and social and websites, because this is all going to factor in. And then you also have SEO expenses. There are so many different metrics that will go into defining your ROI. When it comes to website traffic, there's total visits, unique visitors, page views, a bounce rate. That means if they're hitting your webpage and they're leaving immediately, you want to know that. And then what you're converting, when people get to your website, are they signing up? Are they filling out a form? Are they placing an order? The number of times a user completes a specific goal can be measured on your website. So if you want someone to scroll to a certain point on your page and download a file, that's something that you can track. How many times did a user click on my ad on social media, go to my website, scroll to this part of the page, and download this product? So that's a goal completion tracking. You can start to associate a cost per those goals or conversions. So as you figure out how much time you're putting into things, what your overall expenses are into things, each of those outcomes can have a very specific cost associated with them as well, and a value that you're getting back. The other metrics that you want to keep in mind are keyword rankings, organic traffic. This is the number of visitors who land on your website through their searches. You want to take a look at your click-through rate, which is a percentage of users who click on your website's link in search engine results. You definitely want to be tracking your metrics on social media, which are pretty easy with the different platforms. They showed you how each post was engaged, the reach that it had, the traffic. We have in your brand book tracking reputation, online reviews, and ratings. So we had in your brand book where you could track customer feedback. Um, as you start to build out your online presence, you're going to start to pick up more online reviews and ratings. It should be growing organically. So you want to know, are those getting better or worse? Or, what is that sentiment? What is it doing? So now, what do I do with all of this that I've put together? And all of a sudden, I wrapped that up a lot faster than I thought. Um, so the last part of your book here brings it all together, where you're saying, this is my total spend on these social media things. And when I add it all up, does this total spend equate to more than what I'm getting back out of it? And you'll need to determine what you're getting out of it. So you'll see there's not really a formula for that in here. But this is a way for you to understand your spend. I've highlighted these columns because you don't want to have information in both. If you have a monthly expense, you want to multiply it by the annual cost, because you're probably not going to have a one-time monthly expense unless it's a one-time expense that you're not going to do again. A monthly expense is something that you're paying monthly. It's automatically hitting your card. You're probably in an agreement for a year or more. But then that'll help you to figure out your total spend at the end of the day so that you can determine if you're really getting the return you want. And with these tools to measure your expenses and time, especially, um, these are templates that you can build out in different ways. This book is not meant to be a final thing. You're always going to be evolving it and growing it and using it as a point of reference. So you might add different fields and columns. You might have 20 competitors that you analyze, or maybe you only have 2. You may have only a few website goals. Um, you may have trouble figuring out how to estimate their spend, but you want to throw some kind of target at that. Your comparison, you might have different factors that you want to compare into um, when you choose your website provider. You can add that to this worksheet. You can modify this in whatever way is going to bring the biggest value to your business. And that's why I've given you, hopefully, a great starting point for it. So we didn't cover everything today when it comes to digital presence. We covered a lot, but we didn't really get too deeply into hard-coded websites and the benefits of complex platforms when you have a target. Um, there are also specific web tools for different industries. A great example is my Peninsula Acupuncture customer, because her um, scheduling service is actually a third-party portal that she has an account with, because they handle all of the HIPAA compliance. That system holds all the sensitive customer data. It processes the scheduling and payment. We've just integrated it directly into her site. So from a look and feel perspective, you can come here and you can utilize the widget to schedule and book, but this is actually a separate platform of itself. And depending on what you do or provide, if you're a hotel, you may have a separate booking platform that you already use that you just want to integrate into your website. So this is what I talk about, kind of industry-specific tasks and platforms. There are specifics to selling online that we didn't really cover when it comes to e-commerce. Um, things like managing your inventory, things like having product descriptions, pictures, and all of that rich data for selling products online. What if you're reselling affiliate links? I mentioned them, but we didn't really get into the specifics. And then there's the ways to accept payment on your website. Depending on what you're doing, there are very simple ways to allow people to send you a PayPal payment, or I use a service called Buy Me a Coffee that allows people to just give me small donation amounts, or pay for my classes and services or content that I have behind a paywall. There are a lot of different platforms for accepting payment, for selling products online, and there can be a lot of complexities to those. So you want to make sure you do your research as you set those up. And I'm going to skip, we talked about industry and task specific platforms a little bit. So then customer data and privacy. This is a whole huge topic unto itself, because the web is a dangerous place and there are a lot of malicious actors out there that want your data. They want your customer data. They want to be able to access it, and they're going to take whatever tactics they can. I'll show you the back end of my website, because right now it's a good example of getting a bit of spam on my platform and not having enough time to go and take care of it and not having an automated tool that does it, I have to manually go and review any of the spam comments that come onto my WordPress site. So this is the back end of my website. And you'll see here I have a few different sections. I have 36 comments, and then I also have form responses. So if we look at these comments, you'll see here that they have an author and they have an email address associated with it. And then this is all that the comment is someone's name. This is a spam tactic, and it drives more of these messages to their IP addresses. And that's the advantage that it gives them. But they're also trying to access, these are like accounts that they've been trying to obtain access to. So the more that they kind of put them out there, the more likely they are to gain access and to actually get to that person's data. Now, what's lovely here is you see I can select all of them because they all look the same here on this first page. And I can say mark as spam and apply, and they're gone. So now I can continue to go through and see if all of these are the same situation. They're not a real comment. Okay, we'll just move those to spam. And now we'll go look at the form responses. So I didn't have any non-spam comments available. Now these, I have a form where you can survey my services, and you'll see these are the same thing. They're just someone's email address. They just kind of try to muddle through the form. They're not really providing me actual data. So similar here, I'm going to just make sure that all of these are spam. Oh, these are some actual comments that I've had previously on the site. So I'm going to uncheck those so I can keep those. But all of these, I'm going to go ahead and mark as spam and get them out of my view. So now I can only see the actual good comments or negative comments. I shouldn't say that. The actual quality comments. So I'll show you a couple things. WordPress does have some built-in tools to help you with SEO. And one of them is called All-in-One SEO. This does integrate with Google Analytics as well as Monster Insights, which I have down here. So these are similar tools that kind of offer different functionality. But you'll see it's given me kind of a score and a checklist of different things that I can review on my site that could use improvement. So of course I want to look at the important issues first. And you'll see here, pages, images with no alt attribute. And it considers that very important. Meta tags. So let's take a look at what it's talking about meta tags. So there's some, it looks like open graph images. So I can edit this page now that it's told me the problem is on. Oh, it took me to the Facebook settings. There we go. So where does it say the problem? Oh, so I don't have any of these filled out, and it's expecting them to be filled out. That's not a great example to show you. Let's go on an actual page. So these are some of the different pages on my website. You'll see they have varying kind of red, yellow, green scores depending on them. You'll see I have this page here that has a very green score, but then I have this page that has a very bad score. So what is it scoring? Well, if we go to the actual edit of the page, we'll see that, here is the text and the actual content of this page. And then down at the bottom, I can bring up the AIO SEO settings, and I can see what is affecting my scores here. And here you'll see I have a little bit too long of a meta description, but it's what I modified and it sounds right to me. So even though it's a little bit longer than the max characters, I don't really want to shorten it any further. So it's telling me that that key phrase length is slightly too long, but it's not terrible. The focus key phrase is not found in the URL. Now, this is kind of because the URL, in order to be as simple as possible for spidering purposes, for crawling purposes, I've just made it Peninsula Senior Activity Center, or PSAC. This also makes it very easy to get to from a user perspective. If they had to type it in for some reason, they're not typing in all kinds of letters and text and craziness. But it's saying that it does impact my overall SEO score. And it's going to give you a lot of different options to help build it up. Not every page needs to be optimized, and you can decide what you think a decent score for you is. This score is just on the headline itself. Nothing else, just is this headline of this page going to bring in search results, going to bring traffic to my website? And you'll see it's not necessarily intuitive what you would think you'd want sort of a headline to be. So let's just look at my main home page. Oh, I'm sorry, which isn't configured here, but let's look at one of the ones that I have a lesser score on, like this text on the beach page. So here, I'm describing my services that I provide here locally, text on the beach, and it doesn't think my headline is very good. It's not wrong. This doesn't explain the services. This doesn't have a catchy text on the beach can solve your tech problems today. So let's see what it said. On the beach comes to the technology rescue. And this little box that you're seeing here, that's my LastPass plugin for my Chrome browser, which is a little invasive, but it's way wonderful for managing passwords. If you didn't have a chance to come to my class at the Ocean Park Senior Center on passwords this month, you missed out on a doozy, because password management is huge when you're managing websites and social media and SEO and all the different platforms that you're going to be signing up for. If you don't have a password manager, it can cause you a huge headache. Highly recommend one. So look, when I change my heading to text on the beach comes to the technology rescue, instead of the page just being text on the beach, now I have a super score. So it works for me. We'll go ahead and update it. I didn't actually change my headline there. And you'll see now it's adjusted the score there. You see, I'm very comfortable in the WordPress environment. It's a platform that you can adapt to, and that there's excessive amounts of training and information on all over. So, I like to remain agnostic to the different tools that are available to do different things. I'm not trying to say that Wix or Squarespace or Weebly aren't going to meet your needs. They very well might. I have a strong preference towards WordPress because it allows for that ease, but it also allows for me to get it's highly configurable on the back end is what I'm trying to say. So the last point that I'll mention that we didn't really talk about is hiring help. If you don't want to use any of your local providers here, there are some other than myself on the peninsula that can support you in your social media endeavors. Check out the Ocean Park Chamber of Commerce. I did include in the worksheet here some of the other local online communities that you might want to become a part of include all of these local chambers, but you can also utilize them to find people to help you with your online presence. I didn't get a chance to show this for those in the hospitality industry, but the Washington Hospitality Association, though it's at cost, has a very aggressive advertising program available for its members, both that provide hospitality services and that service hospitality industry. So two-way street there. And obviously hospitality is a huge thing on the peninsula here. So depending on your business, it may be a game changer for you. And that brings us to the end of the content today with just enough time for any additional questions you might have out there. So let me know, send it in the text or feel free to unmute. I am so thankful that you stayed here with me today and listened to this presentation, and hopefully you feel like you can actually step forward and create that new digital presence for your business. And I really hope to see you in our next class, which is not March 27th. It is April 10th. See, that's why it's always good to have extra sets of eyes on your materials because you might just forget to update one little thing at the very end. So thanks again. And, please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions after the class. Hopefully we'll be able to share this recording a lot sooner than the last one. We were just kind of working out the kinks in the processes with these first couple sessions, and hopefully everything is going to be even smoother moving forward. But I would love any feedback you have on the process. I am really excited for this next class on streamlining operations. I really love getting into some of the software that's involved here for helping people with managing employees. On this peninsula, we have such a huge turnover problem and a problem with getting the right people for the job, getting them trained. There are so many technology tools to help with this, to either help with your training processes, your onboarding, offboarding, and just maintaining that employee relationship, and then your customer relationships and how that plays into managing your business's inventory and other processes. So we're going to talk about a number of different systems that are integral to making your business optimal. Maybe you can augment the need for employees with some of the technology and not need as much of a staff when we have such a problem obtaining it. There are a lot of different ways to improve and streamline your processes that can make your employees have more time to deal with other things that are a higher priority. You want to slough off as much of the sort of non-valuable processes that go on in your business. And that's what our class on April 10th is really going to focus in on. So I look forward to seeing you in that one. And again, I thank you so much. And I really hope that this content is bringing value to your business. And with that, I'm going to close out our class and I'll look forward to seeing you on April 10th.